Have you ever looked at a house and thought, this is absolutely terrifying? Well, today we're diving into the most extreme homes on planet Earth that are so insane, even their own owners are scared to actually live in them. These aren't your typical dream homes. We're talking about houses that hang off cliffs, float in the middle of nowhere, and challenge every law of physics and common sense. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you won't want to miss what's coming up. Trust me, these homes will blow your mind. Let's kick things off with the Crystal Mill in Colorado. This wooden powerhouse clings to a rocky cliff like it's barely holding on for dear life. Built back in the 1800s, it sits perched on a cliff edge over the Crystal River, and honestly, just looking at it makes your palms sweaty. The structure was used to generate power for nearby silver mines, but here's the thing. The foundation is so precarious that getting close to it requires serious hiking skills and nerves of steel. The owners. They don't even think about living there. One strong gust of wind or a minor earthquake could send the whole thing tumbling into the river below. The wood is ancient, the structure is unstable, and while it's become an iconic photo spot, nobody in their right mind would want to sleep there at night. Imagine waking up to the sound of creaking wood and wondering if today's the day gravity finally wins. Next up, we have the Catskill Pillar Monastery in the country of Georgia. Picture this, a limestone monolith shooting straight up from the ground, reaching about 130 feet into the sky, and sitting right on top is a tiny monastery. Yeah, you heard that right. A monk actually lives up there, and the only way to reach it is by climbing a sketchy metal ladder that's basically bolted into the rock face. This isn't some modern architectural wonder, it's ancient. The church was built up there centuries ago, and while one monk has made it his home for spiritual isolation, even he admits it's not for the faint of heart. One slip on that ladder and it's game over. No safety harness, no second chances. The monk lives in complete solitude with barely any supplies, and during bad weather he's literally stranded in the clouds. It's extreme living at its finest, and while it's technically a home, most people would call it a one-way ticket to a heart attack. Now let's talk about the Frying Pan Tower off the coast of North Carolina. This place used to be a Coast Guard light station, but now it's a bed and breakfast. Sounds charming, right? Wrong. It's located 8 miles offshore in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, standing on stilts that were built in the 1960s. To get there you either take a helicopter or a boat, and once you're out there you're stuck. The tower is surrounded by nothing but water and sharks, and it sways with every wave and storm. The owners turned it into a quirky getaway spot, but staying there during a hurricane? Absolutely not. Guests have reported the entire structure shaking violently during storms, and the isolation is so intense that people start feeling claustrophobic even though they're surrounded by open ocean. It's rusty, it's old, and honestly it feels like it could collapse at any moment. The views are incredible, sure, but so is the fear. Let's head over to the Solvay hut in the Swiss Alps. This tiny emergency shelter is perched on the side of the Matterhorn at over 13,000 feet above sea level. It's meant for climbers who get stuck during their ascent, not for casual living. The hut can barely fit 10 people, and it's clinging to the mountain with zero insulation and minimal supplies. You can't just pop over for a weekend. You have to be an experienced mountaineer just to reach it, and even then, the altitude, freezing temperatures, and constant risk of avalanches make it one of the most dangerous places to stay on Earth. The owners, which is actually the Swiss Alpine Club, only use it for emergencies. Spending a night there means you're either in serious trouble or seriously crazy. The wind howls non-stop, the cold seeps into your bones, and you're constantly aware that one wrong move could send you sliding down thousands of feet of icy rock. Moving on, let's talk about the Cliff House in Modena, Utah. This place is literally built into the side of a cliff, and it hangs over a canyon that drops hundreds of feet below. The house was designed to blend into the rock face, which sounds cool until you realize that living there means dealing with constant instability. Erosion is a huge problem, and every rainstorm brings the possibility of rock slides. The foundation is drilled into the cliff, but nothing about it feels permanent. The owners love the views and the privacy, but they've admitted they get nervous during heavy storms. The structure shifts slightly over time and cracks have started appearing in the walls. It's a gorgeous piece of architecture, but it's also a ticking time bomb. One major geological event and the whole thing could break away from the mountain. Would you risk it for the view? Most people wouldn't. Then there's the Drina River House in Serbia. This tiny cabin sits on a rock in the middle of the Drina River, and it's been rebuilt multiple times because it keeps getting destroyed by floods. The first version was built by a group of boys back in the 1960s, and since then it's become famous. But here's the catch. It's constantly battered by the river, and every time the water rises, the house gets pummeled. The current version is more like a symbolic structure than an actual home. Nobody lives there full-time because it's impossible. The river is unpredictable, and during flood season the entire house gets submerged. Even when the water's calm, accessing it requires a boat and a lot of guts. The isolation is intense, and the constant threat of destruction makes it one of the most extreme homes you'll ever see. It's picturesque, but it's also a disaster waiting to happen. Now we've got the Eladi Island House in Iceland. This remote island is located in the Vestmanna Ayar archipelago, and there's a single house sitting right in the middle of it. No roads, no electricity, no running water. The island is surrounded by freezing ocean water and the weather is brutal. Storms roll in constantly, and the winds are so strong they can knock a person off their feet. The house belongs to a hunting association, and it's used as a seasonal lodge, but living there full-time would be borderline impossible. Supplies have to be brought in by boat, and during the winter the island becomes completely inaccessible. The isolation is extreme and the harsh climate means you're constantly battling the elements. Even the owners only visit for short periods. Anything longer would be too much to handle mentally and physically. Let's not forget the hanging houses of Cuenca in Spain. These medieval buildings literally hang off the edge of a cliff, with their balconies jutting out over a massive gorge. They were built centuries ago, and while they're still standing, living in them today is a gamble. The foundations have weakened over time, and engineers constantly monitor them for structural issues. Some of the houses have been converted into museums and restaurants because nobody wants to risk living there full time. The floors slope, the walls crack, and every so often a piece of the cliff breaks off and tumbles into the gorge below. The views are stunning, but the fear of falling keeps most people away. It's history, culture, and sheer terror all rolled into one. Next is the Sharon Resort in Saudi Arabia. This isn't your typical home, but it's designed as a luxury retreat carved directly into sandstone cliffs. The problem? The entire structure is built into fragile desert rock that's constantly eroding. Engineers have reinforced it as much as possible, but the natural shifting of the rock means it's never truly stable. The design is breathtaking, but guests have reported hearing strange creaking sounds and feeling vibrations through the floors. The fear factor is real, and while the resort is open, many visitors admit they wouldn't want to stay there long term. It's a stunning feat of architecture, but it's also a reminder that nature always has the upper hand. Finally, let's talk about the Casa do Penedo in Portugal. This house is built between four giant boulders and it looks like something out of the Flintstones. The boulders serve as the walls and roof, and while it's quirky and charming, it's also wildly impractical. The rocks shift over time, and there's always the risk that one of them could settle in a way that crushes the structure. The owners originally built it as a rural retreat, but they quickly realized that living there full-time was too stressful. The house has no modern foundation, and everything relies on the stability of those massive stones. It's become a tourist attraction, but it's also a cautionary tale about building homes in extreme conditions. It's cute until you realize you're sleeping under thousands of pounds of unstable rock. So there you have it, 10 of the most extreme homes on Earth that are so wild, even their owners think twice before staying in them. Would you live in any of these? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more insane content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. What's fascinating about all of these extreme homes is that they represent something much deeper than just architectural ambition or reckless decision-making. They're monuments to human determination, to our desire to push boundaries and live in places that most people would consider absolutely impossible. Whether it's a monk seeking spiritual enlightenment on top of a pillar or an architect trying to create something nobody's ever seen before, these homes tell stories of people who refuse to accept the limitations that geography and physics tried to impose on them. But here's what really gets me thinking. Why do people do this? Why would anyone choose to live in constant danger when there are perfectly safe neighborhoods with stable foundations and reliable electricity just waiting for them? I think part of it comes down to the human spirit. We're wired to explore, to challenge ourselves, to create something that nobody else has created before. A normal house doesn't excite us. A house that hangs off a cliff or floats in the middle of the ocean. Now that gets our attention, that pushes us to do something extraordinary. The truth is, many of these extreme homes have become symbols. They're not just places to sleep, they're testaments to human creativity and perseverance. Tourists flock to them, photographers risk their lives to capture them, and people around the world are inspired by them. The hanging houses of Cuenca are now part of Spain's cultural heritage. The Crystal Mill is an iconic landmark that draws thousands of visitors every year. The Catskill Pillar Monastery has become a pilgrimage site for people seeking spiritual meaning. These homes have transcended their original purpose and become something bigger than themselves. Of course, there are serious concerns here too. The structural integrity issues we've talked about aren't just interesting trivia. They're real dangers that could result in tragedy. Engineers and safety officials constantly worry about these buildings collapsing or causing harm to the people visiting them or the few brave souls actually living in them. There's a balance between preservation and safety, between honoring historical significance and protecting human life. It's not always an easy balance to strike. What we're also seeing with these extreme homes is an interesting shift in how we think about real estate and architecture. Traditionally, a good home was defined by its stability, its comfort, its proximity to amenities and services. But there's a growing segment of people, especially younger generations, who are rejecting that definition. They're looking for homes that challenge them, homes that make them feel alive, homes that have a story to tell. A house in the suburbs might be safe and comfortable, but it won't give you stories to tell for the rest of your life. That said, there's definitely a line between adventurous and suicidal. Most of these homes exist in a gray area where living in them full-time would be genuinely unsafe. The owners and authorities acknowledge this. That's why many of them have been converted to museums, seasonal lodges, or tourist attractions instead of permanent residences. It's a compromise that allows people to experience the thrill and the beauty without putting their lives at immediate risk. It's also worth considering the environmental impact of some of these homes. Building on cliffs, in remote islands, or in fragile desert ecosystems can cause damage to natural habitats and accelerate erosion. Some of these structures are actually making their surroundings less stable. The Cliff House in Utah, for example, is accelerating the erosion of the cliff face. The Sharon Resort in Saudi Arabia is potentially destabilizing the sandstone around it. There's an ethical question here about whether we should be building in these places at all, regardless of how cool the final result looks. But then again, many of these homes have stood for centuries. The hanging houses of Cuenca were built in medieval times and are still there. The Catskill Pillar has had monks living on it for over 1,000 years. These structures have proven their durability, at least to some extent. Maybe there's something we can learn from them. Maybe the ancient builders understood something about materials and placement that modern engineers have forgotten. Or maybe they were just incredibly lucky. What I find most inspiring about these homes is the human stories behind them. Every single one of them has a person or a group of people who decided that their vision was worth the risk. They looked at an impossible location and said, "I'm going to build something here." Whether it worked out perfectly or they're now dealing with constant maintenance and safety concerns, that takes guts. That takes creativity. That takes a kind of stubborn determination that you don't see very often anymore. If you're someone who's ever felt stuck in life, ever felt like you're living in a box and yearning for something more extreme and authentic, these homes might speak to you on a deeper level. They represent freedom from convention. They represent choosing experience over comfort. They represent saying no to the safe, predictable path and embracing uncertainty. Of course, you probably don't need to build your house on a pillar in the middle of the ocean to find that kind of freedom, but you get the idea. The future of extreme homes is an interesting question too. With climate change intensifying storms, causing more frequent floods, and accelerating erosion, many of these homes are becoming increasingly precarious. The Drina River house might not survive another major flood season. The Frying Pan Tower could face more intense hurricanes. The Cliff House might experience catastrophic rockslides. We might be living through an era where some of these incredible structures don't make it to the next generation. That's actually kind of tragic when you think about it. Yet at the same time, new extreme homes are being designed and built all the time. Architects continue to push the boundaries of what's possible. They're using new materials, new technologies, and new engineering techniques to create homes in even more unlikely locations. Maybe in 50 years, we'll look back at the homes we've talked about today and think they were quaint compared to what people are building in the future. Maybe someone will figure out a way to build a stable home on an active volcano or at the bottom of the ocean. Probably not, but the ambition to try is what matters. What we need to remember is that these homes, for all their danger and impracticality, represent human achievement. They prove that we're capable of incredible things when we refuse to accept limitations. They show that there's beauty in struggle, that there's value in taking risks, and that sometimes the most rewarding experiences come from the places we're told to avoid. These homes are reminders that the world is bigger, stranger, and more wonderful than our everyday lives usually let us see. So thank you so much for taking this journey with us through some of the most extreme homes on the planet. We've seen cliffs and pillars, remote islands and raging rivers, and through it all, we've witnessed the incredible resilience and creativity of the human spirit. If you found this content fascinating, please do hit that like button and let us know in the comments which of these homes you found most terrifying or most inspiring. Would you ever visit any of them? Would you be crazy enough to actually live in one? Let us know what you think. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we're constantly bringing you content that explores the weird, wonderful, and absolutely mind-blowing corners of our world. Every week we dive into topics that challenge your perspective, expand your understanding, and show you that reality is far stranger than fiction. We've got videos coming up about abandoned cities, mysterious phenomena, incredible survival stories, and so much more. You won't want to miss what's next. Thanks again for watching, thanks for being part of this community, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay adventurous, stay safe, and keep pushing the boundaries of what you think is possible.